All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and peace, salutations, and blessings be unto the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the globe, in the sincere hopes of being delivered in these last days. All right. Now, this is going to be a fairly brief video, and inspiration for this video is taken from a few videos that I've watched, earlier on today. One of the videos you can see here on the screen, and another video that I have here. Both videos taken from, TikTok. This one's concerning, Jeffrey Epstein and all of the information, that's flooding the internet concerning various different pieces of documentation that's been, so-called leaked from these files. Okay. And even with that, there's a lot of information out there that Esau is purposefully, pushing out there to desensitize, the masses from, the wickedness that they're doing, behind closed doors. Okay. And we've been talking about this, for the longest time, how they're going to continue to make the obvious, commercial. Okay. To the point where anything that comes out after this, it's not going to be a shock at all, because they've already, put out there, the heights of their satanic, rituals, so on and so forth. All right. So anything that comes out after this point is pretty much, going to be nothing to the people, because you've already been exposed to, their most left practices, concerning cannibalism, SRA abuse of children, so on and so forth. So we're in that time, all right, and they're being exposed through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shim Shai ultimately, all right, because the prophets have been telling you what these, wicked elites have been doing, behind closed doors. Now it's just out there and it's commercial, okay, which again, Esau finds ways to use these things to his advantage. But what he doesn't understand is that this is all the divine will and plan of Yahweh Shim Shai anyway, all right, because as the scriptures tell us, let's get it right quick. In Jeremiah 49 and verse 10, the scriptures say, "But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not." Okay? So Esau is being made bare, all right, in these last days. He's being exposed. Okay, everyone is seeing the true nature of the so-called white man, beginning with these ruling banking elites that rule the world in secrecy. Okay, as pursuant to Psalms, the 64th chapter, the scriptures talk about the secret council of the wicked. All right, that will be your Illuminati. Okay, the banking families that rule the earth and that control, events and engineered events that transpire, upon the earth. But ultimately, as we know through this truth, they are controlled, by the left hand of Yahweh Shim Yahweh Shai. Okay, so it all goes back to the Lord. Okay, like it tells us in Sirach, the 18th chapter, all things obey his will. Okay, him being Yahweh while Yahweh Shai. All right, you can't operate outside of that control. So again, by I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places. So Esau has been laid bare in these last days. Okay. And the scriptures even tell us in Psalms, the 64th chapter. Let me get it right quick before I get into these videos. Psalm 64, as we just quoted in verse 8, it says, "So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away." All right. So oftentimes you will see Esau strategically, allow his tongue to fall upon himself. Okay, that's biblical prophecy. Now he's doing it, for the reasons to desensitize the masses to the wickedness and to the left hand side, but ultimately, that's fulfilling biblical prophecy. All right. And that's why you see all of these TV series. A good example is Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the series. I believe that was on Netflix, some years back. And they showed you a lot of left hand, concepts, deities and, demons, so on and so forth. But, in the form of, joke and entertainment. Okay. But it was really, high level, left hand energy, that you were watching. But because they sprinkle, the comedy, mixed in with it, it went over a lot of people's heads. And it's the same with a lot of these movies and TV series, Black Mirror, so on and so forth. They're able to, put extreme left-hand satanic, ritualistic behavior and content in front of you, and actually, desensitize it to, desensitize you to that information that you're exposed to. All right. And again, that is the wicked agendas of the elites of Esau Edom. That's what they've been doing. But you're not pulling the wool over the elites. So it's like you're not the elites. You're not putting the wool over the elect of Yahweh Shimi Shai. We see these things and we've been calling it out and warning you, through these videos, through the spirit. Okay. Now, the first video I want to get into is this one right here. All right. Which I came across this video about 4 or 5 months ago. All right. Maybe even longer than that. But in light of this whole, Epstein, situation and all this, data that's being, so-called leaked, it's resurfaced, all right? Because you had this woman, she's a model, as you can see here, from Mexico. And it says here she fled from one of Epstein's parties. Now, I don't believe it was an Epstein party that she fled from. I believe she just fled from, a event, a left-hand party, where they were doing similar things to what, people that attend, Epstein's, parties and gatherings do. All right. But I believe they just rebranded it to fit in with, what's happening now, which again, that's, misinformation. But I remember this clip and it had nothing to do with, Epstein at the time. So that's also, another thing we got to be aware of is, filtering, information, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of fake content, designed to trip you up and to have you reporting on something that's not real. That's also another, technique, that Esau uses. Okay. So he can, debunk it months or years later and say that, we told you this was bullshit. All right. Which a lot of the stuff that's, been released in that, documents, those Epstein documents, a lot of it has been found to be, photoshopped or images that, really came from somewhere else. But we know the mass majority, of the content, is real concerning the documents and so on and so forth. But they've also mingled false information and images in there as well. All right. So we got to be aware of those things, man. All right. Because that's how the devil gets down. Now, let me just play this video right quick, because this woman you're about to watch, she was, after this clip, after she spazzed out, she was never seen again. All right. Up until this very day, no one knows what happened to this woman. Let me play this right quick. All right, so you saw what she was saying in the subtitles. You see it here. I'm not even going to repeat it. You can read it, okay? So this gathering where she was, that's what she was witnessing, all right? And it bugged her out. But these are the kind of things that individuals participate in if they want to, get to higher levels, in this kingdom, okay? And it's no surprise that you're having, rappers being named in this, Jay-Z, Pusha T, all right? All kind of, rappers and entertainers and movie stars are mentioned, in these documents, And again, it's not a surprise because, they've sold their soul. Okay? Let me get right quick. This is Luke chapter 8 and verse 16. And it says, no man that have, actually, let me start from 17, get to the point. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. Okay? And this is what we're witnessing in these last days. All of these secret things that have been done in the dark, done behind closed doors, done in wickedness, are now coming, to the light and being manifest and exposed. Okay? And this is another sign, an identifying mark that we're at the end of this man's kingdom. All right? The end of Esau Edom's kingdom, because everything is being exposed. Everything is being brought to the light before this man, is utterly destroyed and taken out of his ruler seat. Okay? Now, another scripture I wanted to get is concerning, these sellouts. Because a lot of our people, they've compromised themselves on a higher level in order to gain, in this world. All right? Now, this is Matthew chapter 16 and verse 26. For what, I'm going to start from verse 25. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. Okay? And that's what, we have done through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, Lord willing. All right? We've lost our life in this world in order to find our life in Yahushai. Okay? In verse 26, it says, for what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Okay? So, the wicked of our people, they have sold their soul for the riches in this world. Okay? For positions in this world. Okay? They've trimmed their ways, to seek love. They've compromised themselves on the highest level. Okay? So they can be favored by the ruler of this world, who is a spiritual demon, Satan. Okay? And his people, who are the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, the Edomites, beginning with the elite ruling banking families. Okay? So they've opted out of believing in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and have instead, what's the word I'm looking for? Subscribed, all right, to the left-hand side, all right, to Esau Edom, and they've sold out, which involves, certain, demonic, practices, okay, in order to, please the left-hand side and, compromise yourself, so on and so forth. Okay, they film it, they have these parties, the same shit that Diddy was doing. But who was Diddy inspired by? He was inspired by, certain men, such as Clive Davis, the elites of the music industry, because they were doing the same shit. Okay, but yet still, they want to go on like, Jake is at the forefront of these things. Jake is just mimicking, the wicked and what they're doing, because this is their world, man. Okay, that's why the scripture's saying, John chapter 8 and verse 44, ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye shall do. Okay, Esau, Jake is just following what Esau is doing. Okay, that's why the scriptures say, the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. All right, our people have been seduced by the ways of the wicked. Okay, because they have wealth and they have power in this world. Okay, and so they've lost patience. They don't want to wait, for Yahweh Hashem Yahushai to return. They want to participate in the goodies now. So they sold their soul. Okay, they compromise themselves on the highest level. All right. Now let's go to the next video, which is another one I was watching. I'm gonna let this play for a little bit. Let me see.
I used to be a former. You want to know what Jeffrey Epstein was up to? You kind of have to think like a scientist, or be one. I used to be a former neuroscientist, and put in keywords that are related to certain things, like mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. So if somebody's interested in anti-aging research, they would be interested in topics related to mitochondria, and boom, I get some hits. And let me just front load this, y'all, okay? There's one email talking about mitochondrial transplantation sent to an unknown email address that I see in some of these more sensitive areas of conversations. From Jeffrey Epstein himself. Life expectancy tables after reaching the age of 60 have not changed much in 100 years. And the most change happens when you move to a city. But any road treatment would likely get pushback because why? They want to keep the death numbers constant. Yeah, you heard me. They want to keep the death numbers constant.
And that's what the the Georgia Guidestones was all about. That mysteriously just got destroyed not so long ago. Okay, which gave the information about keep humanity, the numbers of humanity. I believe it was under 500 million, something to that effect. Okay, so they wanted to control the numbers. Okay, which means that 7.5 billion people would have to go. Okay, so how is they gonna do that? Vaccines, okay, particular contaminating the food, contaminating the water, all of these things that they do in society, to take people out is being exposed. Okay, but first and foremost, who's been exposing these things, man? Hey, the prophets of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the mouthpieces. Okay, the scriptures say, destroy them that destroyeth the earth. Okay, when we go to Revelation chapter 6, it tells us that he is that red horse that taketh away peace from the earth. Okay, Esau is that violent and bloody man, and wicked that the Bible speaks of, man. Okay, and this is going into eternal life, through their transhumanism, all right, through their sacrifices. Okay, because even the scriptures tell you that life is in the blood. Let me get that right quick. And that's why they perform these left hand rituals, okay, because they want to extend their life. They believe by doing these things they're going to be able to extend their capacity upon the earth, all right, which is foolishness. Eternal life is only reserved first and foremost for the Israelites, okay, in the kingdom, and that's through Yahweh Shai, all right. Here it is. This is Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 11. And it reads, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. All right. And we know that Yahweh Shai, he was the ultimate sacrifice. Okay. Beginning with, for, the elect, and ultimately, all of the nation of Israel. All right. That's why the scriptures say that all Israel shall be saved. Okay. But this is why they do what they do. All right. This is why they, perform, SRA, abuse. Okay. So they can, withdraw, the BLOOD, and, they consume it. All right. All this information is out there now. It's commercial. All right, this information is commercial now, and the things that they've been doing, is just laid out there. And again, desensitizing the people to the left-hand side. All right, this is what Esau is doing. All right, let's play this.
Then he goes on to say that he would only do this on a segment of the population. Not sure which one. You and I should be a member of the class. But I think that the complex system will find a new death mechanism. Now he's asking somebody else to chime in about the vascular pathways, which get wonky as you get older and as Alzheimer starts to increase with age. And
all right, so I'm not going to play no more of that. You get the point. All right, Lord willing. And this is, Esau, Edom being exposed in these last days. All right, so this man's about to go down. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, this lesson has been edifying, and until the next time, I'll say shalom.